Riddle me this, federal government. If winners don't do drugs, then why am I still such a fucking loser? Afraid of monsters. Are you afraid of monsters? I'm not.
Are you fucking kidding? Why is the ghost meowing at me?
Afraid of Monsters is a total conversion action horror mod for Half-Life, created by the Swedish Hideo Kojima of horror games, aka Andreas Ronberg. The original edition of this game was released in 2005, when Andreas was just 14. And somehow, I shit you not, this janky early Half-Life mod made by a fucking teenager is made with more passion and professionalism than most games coming out today. A few years later in 2007, Andreas, along with his main wingman, James Marchant, released the director's cut, a slightly more polished realization of the original experience. And if either of these guys' names sound familiar, that's because they are the very same individuals of Cry of Fear fame. But,
I've already done a video on that game on my old account, so I have to make do with this fucking thing.
While these two pretty much carried the development of both mods, they did have some help. Regardless, the prowess of their craft cannot be understated, and Cry of Fear, possibly one of my greatest psychological horror experiences of all time, could not have been possible without Afraid of Monsters. Now, you'll notice that essentially in reviewing Afraid of Monsters, I'm reviewing Half-Life, as it is largely a horror-themed spook show of Half-Life. Same movement system, same platforming, even the enemies are ripped from Half-Life, given a new coat of paint, and a line of crack cocaine. And I don't even want to think about what this guy's spitting at you. Yeah, moving on. You play as David Leatherhoff, a Swede. A man so cripplingly addicted to Nurofen, he immediately passes out, after nosediving into a hospital toilet after popping another bottle of pills. Given the tracksuit, the drug addiction, and the decrepit surroundings of the city, it's no wonder this game has such a large Russian community. The intro sequence does a masterful job at setting the tone, the camera sweeping through the brightly lit hospital while a copyrighted Aphex Twin track plays in the background. In fact, let's get this out of the way. Most of the game's music comes from Aphex Twin selected ambient works. Is this a bad thing? No, the music's actually really good, and perfectly complements the kitchen sink grime and clutter of David's surroundings. When you wake up, you emerge to the glorious NHS standards of healthcare, completed with a bloody knife in a patient toilet, and a gun. I assume that's for if the patient's credit card declines. The hospital intro is very slow burn. There's a lot of exploring and navigating this fucking maze of death before any enemies even show up. The shit hitting the fan once your boy Danny G flicks off the power switch.
You little fucking muppet! I don't bite people, do I?
The majority of enemies in this game are humanoid zombie-looking pricks called Twitchers. They are, however, very fast and very dangerous, even on their own, and their appearance is just disgusting. Their heads spazzing around all over the place like in a low-budget Gmod machinima. Pretty much all other enemies in this game are reskinned Half-Life enemies as well, especially the hand crab who probably should have learned not to bite the hand that feeds him.
Shut up, bitch!
I will not lie to you, however. The absolute worst enemy in human existence, the fucking face that spits eyeballs at you, that only appears when it's firing its attack, has cost me more than my fair share of monitors than I care to admit. The biggest enemy David has to face in this game, however, is you, the player. That's right, you sick fox. You wanna know why this crackhead is bee-hopping through air vents while battling the most twisted manifestations of human suffering? That's right, it's the paracetamol you're shoving down his throat. The subject of David's addiction, the painkillers, are the reason everything's even happening. I mean, I don't even know why I should be subtle about it. The fucking game sure as hell isn't.
Yo, I'm tripping the fuck out. It's time to do surgery.
But it's interesting to see where a lot of the ideas of Cry of Fear were fermented. Both games take place inside the protagonist's heads, both of whom face off against physical manifestations of their inner demons, and both of whom find comfort in more hard drugs than what would kill a fully grown elephant. In other words, Afraid of Monsters is the world's most elaborate anti-drug campaign. Gameplay. If you've played Half-Life, you've played Afraid of Monsters. Again, not a bad thing. Owing to the team's ingenuity of being able to follow the design philosophies of the source material to such a T that the quality is not diluted in any way. Except for the flashlight, which you will be using a lot due to how fucking dark this game is. And because of how the base Half-Life flashlight exists on another quantum reality in order to produce this distorted, dynamically extending sphere of light, good luck seeing the abomination tongue-punching your fart box. This problem is exacerbated in the original edition of the game when you take into account the hospital section's convoluted maze-like design. This is negated, however, by the fact that you get a fucking shotgun 5 minutes later. And I don't need to tell you that you don't need to see shit when you have a gun with a wider spread than your mum's legs. In the original edition, all weapons are reskins of default Half-Life weapons. The director's cut arsenal is far more complex, with multiple variants of the same weapon type being available to the player, with you having to pick and choose which tool suits which situation better on the fly. If you like wasting more ammo than an LAPD officer, you'll take the Glock. If you like not being able to afford ammo for said gun, buy a Desert Eagle. Real tracksuit-wearing gentlemen, however, use the kitchen knife to its fullest advantage. The hammer is an interesting weapon. I don't know what other drugs David is on, but considering he's strong enough to jib a man just by swiping him with a hammer, whatever it is, I want it. The game straight up ends, however, once you discover the fire axe. Both editions of the game offer very different experiences for those who play them. The original, for example, is more geared towards individuals who prefer to duel their sleep paralysis demons in a fight to the death with dual-barreled shotguns. The other, however, is for those of you who empathize with the drug addict lifestyle, scrounging around filthy hospital trash cans for your next hit, and raiding people's homes for their off-brand Duracell batteries. Exploration is a must for those of you who don't want to run out of ammo, don't want to run out of batteries, and don't want to go cold turkey. In the original, everything is a lot more lenient. Ammo is plentiful, and the shotgun is powerful enough to kill God, unlike the director's cut shotgun, which is garbage. A weapon so picky about how it kills its enemies, it makes the Doom 3 shotgun seem copacetic. As it's a horror game, you can expect this game to get pretty fucking creepy. Cracked out Half-Life zombies aren't the only things hiding in the darkness. Occasionally, you will also be assaulted by a funny PNG file floating through the window out of the corner of your eye. And you better watch your fucking six, because renegade MP3 files roam these dark halls, and could strike at any given moment.
For the advice.
Well, this room looks cozy. I think I remember seeing a room just like this when I went to visit my grandparents' house. I always wondered what he meant when he told me to ignore the screams emanating from the basement. I said it before, and I'll say it again. This game has atmosphere, which is exactly what I look for in horror games since, not to brag or anything, but I don't scare easy. Especially not with games with guns, or games that just straight up give you a fucking grenade. The texture work is suspiciously detailed for a Gold Source engine game, yet is just the right amount of early 2000s jank to nosedive perfectly into the uncanny valley. Everything looks like it should, yet feels out of place, only making the cabals of wheelchair-bound homeless people intent on robbing you for your crack money all the more startling. Sound design. More often than not, ambience will flood the scene, characterizing each locale with signature dread. While punctuating the segment steeped in complete silence. What could it mean? Another ambush? An acid trip? Maybe? Nothing at all. The only way for you to find out is to turn that corner and realize how chunky the weapons sound. It may interest you to know that there is not one, not two, but 3 different alternative paths you can take through the game. Upon surviving the subway ambush, you arrive topside with multiple branching paths leading you through different maps that guide you through different encounters. Although some of them are quicker and easier than others, one of them is just straight up a borderline COD Zombies Easter egg. Now, as convoluted as this may sound, but going down these different paths are how you unlock the 3 main endings. Now, in all fairness, these endings are extensions of each other with... spoiler alert. David waking up to find out he went fucking postal and killed everyone, being interviewed by the police, and subsequently killing himself in his cell out of guilt for his actions. Thing is, out of context on a first playthrough, these endings make no sense. First ending I got was ending 2, when he's being interviewed by the police with no reference to the hatred-style killing spree displayed in ending 1. I do appreciate the unorthodox method of storytelling here, with the story not just being about David's nightmarish hallucinations stemming from the darkest parts of his inner psyche, but the aftermath of the events transpiring. It's very tragic, very bleak, and really impactful after everything you've been through and how little the game has told you. But what if I told you there was another ending? Sneaking off down these 3 different branching paths, you will come to notice these strange notes hidden in discrete locations of the map. Each note comes with a letter and an accompanying number. Coming across all 9 notes in the game and rearranging the letters, you get the message, "Forgive me," with the numbers accompanying each word forming a code once arranged in that specific order, and unlocking the final stages of the game. And the true ending of Afraid of Monsters. At first, there's quiet, the anticipation before the final rush of adrenaline slowly building up, before the environment starts to distort, as if the nightmare David is trapped in is actively trying to recontain him, unsatisfied with his decision. Reaching the end of the nightmare, David faces against his greatest enemy and most mortal fear. His addiction, appearing to him in a deadened, zombified state. Every piece of damage inflicted onto it reflected back onto David. The only option he has is to run, until he finally comes across a spear, somehow the only weapon to do any sort of damage to his evil doppelganger, and after 10 minutes of holding down the left mouse button, David defeats his addiction, and wakes up in the hospital bed after having flatlined. I love this ending a lot, as it's only possible if you've delved down the previous 3 paths and found all the notes for the code. It's far shorter than any of the other ending sequences, but it's far more climactic, and it really makes you feel like you earned it. Best of all, completing all 4 endings of the game unlocks you the greatest gun of all time. The S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which, like its real-life counterpart, has infinite ammo and works perfectly under any circumstances and will not jam, fall apart, or melt in your hands whatsoever. In conclusion, where Afraid of Monsters mirrors Half-Life in terms of gameplay and map design down to a T, it far and away exceeds it in terms of atmosphere and environmental storytelling. While it's not as polished, advanced, or stooped in crazy details like Cry of Fear is, Afraid of Monsters is an captivating experience in its own right, putting a fantastic horror twist on the Half-Life formula, and laying the groundworks for the team's future installments. If I had to pick and choose which edition I would recommend, I would simply say go for both of them. The weapons are a lot more powerful in the original, and I would generally consider it to be more fun. However, the director's cut is far more polished, far more replayable, and everything from the enemies, storytelling, and multiple branching paths make for a more thematically cohesive experience. So, try them both out. I mean, they're both fucking free. I don't know what's stopping you pleb. Special thanks to my many members of my Patreon. You are all absolutely insane to have been supporting me for this long, and mere words cannot express my gratitude. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.